Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of The Democratic View. I'm the hostess, and my name is Phyllis Italiano. And with me today, I have I would call him a former LTV employee.
Sure, you could call me that.
All right, and a man who's very involved in something that we all hear about and read about, but may not know too much about it, and that's called Soldier's Ride. So the man's name is Matt Hindra, and he's going to tell us all about, first of all, who he is and where he comes from.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me on your show, Phyllis. Soldier Ride is a project that was started out here on Long Island.
Before you start that, I want to know about you.
Okay.
Matt,
Okay.
where are you born and raised, Matt?
I was born in Manhattan. Lived in Manhattan until I started to go to school, and then we moved out here. So between Hampton Bays, Southampton, and East Hampton, I grew up. Eventually, I went to East Hampton High School, and that's when my parents settled out here in East Hampton. And they're still here, and I've moved away and come back and moved away and come back, but somehow I can't stay away permanently. So this is my home.
I have the same disease.
Yeah. So now I work out of Wainscott, so it's hard to leave.
And did you ever go to any further training after East Hampton High School?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I went to Marist College. I studied TV, radio, and film. Graduated in 1992. Moved to Manhattan. Tried to get into the TV business in Manhattan. Sort of jumped around from different jobs, one to the other. Wound up making a living in the banking industry. It's much easier in New York City than it is in TV. But eventually had enough of the banking industry, and I can't
imagine why.
And I came out to East Hampton for the summer. I ran into Fraser Doherty, who was the founder of LTV,
Yes.
and he offered me a job. And I stayed here for about 10 years working at LTV. Met my wife working here. Met some of my best friends working here. I still love the place. I still come in all the time. And Seth, who's the executive director here at LTV, and I are good friends. And Seth's helped me with lots of my projects over the years. And it's just a great relationship.
And so basically you do a lot of filming, am I correct? Or taping, whatever?
I do. I do two things. To make a living, I work on television commercials. I do a lot of late-night infomercials, things that most people don't particularly need to buy in their life. And you watch it, and they try to get you to buy two of something that you don't need. But my real passion is doing documentaries and doing art pieces. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of money to be made in doing documentaries and art pieces, so you have to supplement your income somehow. And that's how I got involved in doing infomercials. So.
I know that having spoken to Seal Downs, that she told me that the Economic Protection Committee had you filming that wonderful series that they have that we occasionally see here at LTV.
Yeah, I love doing community projects. I mean, it's one of the reasons I've stayed out here.
Yeah.
You could basically, I probably could have moved away long ago and worked out of New York City and been stuck in an office somewhere or a cubicle. Even in the TV business that happens, so. But I really like it out here, and I like working with local people. And I've just been really lucky to be able to work with not only Seal, but Jackie LaFaro at the Take-Two Film Festival, which is a local documentary film festival, which is going into its 7th year. That's at Bay Street Theater in Sag Harbor. And I do a lot of other sort of local projects with artists, a lot of things at Ashwag Hall that maybe you'd see on LTV from occasion. But, like I said, it's sort of hard to make a living that way, just doing local projects. So TV commercials keep me busy. Documentaries keep me busy, do some corporate video, all kinds of things like that.
So tell us about this project that you're here to talk about today. Tell us about Soldier's Ride. I've heard about it, I've read about it, and I've seen pictures of it in the newspaper, but I don't think I know all about it.
Well, most people in East Hampton think of Soldier Ride as a once-a-year event that happens in the Hamptons. They do a ride. It starts in Amagansett. The ride goes from Amagansett to Sag Harbor, loops back around, most of the veterans who ride on Soldier Ride, because many of them have been wounded in combat, they stop their ride back in Amagansett, and then the public can continue to ride through to Montauk and back. So it's about, I think it's about a 60-mile bike ride that they do. So
60.
right,
Wow.
and it comes out
That's
of
a bike ride.
It's a long bike ride, and if you can imagine, it's a long bike ride for the average person. But if you can imagine trying to do that and having a missing limb, or having, some kind of traumatic injury due to a shrapnel, or due to some injury that happened to you, serving our country in a foreign country. So it's a pretty challenging day for most of the veterans who take part in Soldier Ride. Now, Soldier Ride itself wasn't a local event. It was an idea that came about from the Stephen Talk House, which is a bar in Amagansett. And they used to do, well, they still do, they do a lot of charity events for different organizations. And about 10 years ago, they heard of a guy here on Long Island who had lost his leg in Iraq, and they wanted to do something for him and his family. So they had a concert, raised some money, gave the money to the family, but sort of felt like there's got to be something else we can do. So what they wound up doing is they put their brains together, and one of the guys who worked at the bar, his name's Chris Carney, and now he's actually a personal trainer. So he's always been an active guy. Was a rugby player in his day. Actually started the Montauk Rugby Club. Chris and I were high school classmates in East Hampton High School. Chris volunteered to ride his bike across America to raise awareness
Oh, yes.
for wounded
I
veterans.
have heard of that. I have heard of that, yes.
So Chris, Peter Hornekamp, who at the time was the owner of the Stephen Talk House, and is still part owner of the Talk House, and Nick Krause, who's my partner in the documentary, started planning this cross-country bike trip. The bike trip, was basically, they designed it to be sort of a one-time fundraising, sort of rolling advertisement for a charity that they had found, which is the Wounded Warrior Project. And a lot of people see the bumper stickers out here and sort of lawn signs and stuff for Wounded Warrior. So anyway, they left East Hampton, left Montauk. Chris rode his bike across America, and as he was riding his bike across America, this sort of Forrest Gump scenario started happening, where people would ride with him, or people would be out on the street sort of chanting, for him and sort of cheering him on as he was going across America. And in no small thanks to a gentleman called Tony Snow, who unfortunately is no longer alive, but Tony was a radio personality on Fox News Radio, and Chris would call in Tony every morning, and Tony would ask him, Chris, where are you? What are you doing today? And as Chris was going across America, all these towns where people would listen to on the radio, they sort of knew he was coming through. And small town newspapers started picking up on the story, and people followed him all the way across America.
Wow, what a terrific story. That almost sounds like a movie.
Well, yeah, in a lot of ways. And the great thing about the story as they were going across America, Chris caught the notice of a few wounded soldiers who were at the time in Walter Reed, and they had an idea that they wanted to join him on the ride. And they did wind up riding with him for 2 days in the middle of his ride, and also they rode with him on his last day as he was coming into California. And the two soldiers who rode with Chris that year, decided that they wanted to do a cross-country bike ride themselves. And that's really what became Soldier Ride, was when Chris Carney, who originally rode his bike across America, when the two soldiers joined him, one's name is Heath Calhoun and the other one is Ryan Kelly, and when they joined Chris on the next year's journey across America, that really started what we all know today as Soldier Ride.
Is it soldier or soldiers?
It's Soldier Ride.
Soldier Ride.
So, and the idea of Soldier Ride is really, it's a rehabilitative sporting event that helps soldiers who are recovering from injuries that they've got in war. So it's you know, it's a project that when you start meeting these guys and working with them and doing things, it sort of changes your life. Just spending time with people who have been through such incredible things in their life that none of us will ever really understand. As you know, I was never a soldier. The guys who started Soldier Ride, they weren't soldiers. So this, from a civilian perspective, to help these guys and see what they go through on a daily basis is an incredible eye-opening opportunity.
I think more Americans need to know about that kind of thing and what people do go through who are defending our country, and maybe some wars that we probably shouldn't even have had, but that's another part of it. You know our Congressman Tim Bishop, I recently asked him at a forum that he had why there was such a backlog of claims at the Veterans Administration, and how a man's name I always have a problem, Senjiski, I think his name is the way you say it, who's now the new head, has sort of vowed to try to get through all of these claims, because there's an enormous backlog of claims from Iraq and Afghanistan. And Tim said that what would have happened in the past in other wars is that these guys who have now come home and are injured probably would have died. We didn't have the ability to keep these people alive and to reconstruct them as they are sometimes, as we do now. And that was the reason why we have such an enormous amount of claims that are going on in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I'm sure that some of the guys who show up for Soldier Ride and are these veterans who have been sort of injured and put together however they can to be able to carry on with their lives.
Well, the truth of the matter is yeah, the ratio of soldiers who survive a traumatic injury nowadays is 4 or 5 times what it was during the Vietnam era.
Yes, I know.
And most of that is because of modern technology, and also because the way the military trains their soldiers today, because it's a non-volunteer force, as we all know. I mean, people are professional soldiers. So professional soldiers are trained how to, protect each other, how to treat each other in a traumatic situation, whereas a lot of times during voluntary force times, guys had to wait for a medic, they didn't really know what to do. Now everybody who's part of a force would know how to treat something to some degree, because they're very well trained that way. But one of the things that the guys that I've been working with have done to change the culture of finances when it comes to military guys who get hurt is that they've gone to the government and had a whole bunch of legislation passed that helps soldiers from the minute they get injured. So depending on your injury, it's sort of like an AFLAC policy. It's a traumatic injury policy that these guys have. So they get injured, they get a payout within 30 to 45 days. This is separate from their pension, separate from what Tim Bishop's talking about, or what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, he was responding to a question that I had asked.
So this is something that sort of has changed the culture in the last 10 years. A lot of the guys that are in the documentary that I'm working on sort of were the ones who started a lot of the legislation that has been passed since the war in Iraq and Afghanistan has started. There's been a huge evolution in the way we treat our soldiers, in the way I think they themselves look at themselves. They come back, there's a lot of infrastructure now in which they know that they can get help. All they have to do is, be open to it in a lot of ways. Organizations like the Wounded Warrior Project and sporting events like Soldier Ride. Soldier Ride by no means is the only event that goes on around America. First off, there are Soldier Rides in 16 different cities in America that happen throughout the year. My partner in the film right now is in San Diego doing a Soldier Ride on the West Coast. So there's constantly a Soldier Ride going on somewhere in America. At some point, they found that the cross-country Soldier Rides were great for, a few weeks, It gained a lot of momentum. They raised money doing it. But the truth of the matter is you can only help a small amount of people in those 6 weeks. By bringing the Soldier Ride to the towns where the soldiers live and work, and letting them get out into the communities that they served and went to war to protect, that sort of changed the whole dynamic of how people treat soldiers coming home from war.
I hope so.
Well, I've seen it myself. It's amazing when you go on these Soldier Rides and you go out and there's 1,000 people riding alongside these veterans. And the way the community comes out to just sort of, even just at a water stop, and people will come out to thank the soldiers, will come out to sort of greet them. And the idea of just getting them out of their house, because I think that's something that really, during the Vietnam times, guys came home and hid in their home in a lot of ways. They didn't want to talk about what happened to them. They just sort of, buried it in a closet somewhere, honestly. Nowadays,
Well, part of that was because of the reception that they received when they did get home.
Of course, yeah.
It was a horror.
Right.
People blamed them for the war, which of course was not true at all. It was not their fault that they were there. Obviously, there was some politicking that went on, and that's how we got so deeply involved. Our guy who leads our East End veterans is a veteran of the Vietnam War, and talks very strongly about what his experiences were. And they are horrors. They are really horrible. I really, and I think any guy who goes through, or gal who goes through our service and stuff, should be really treated with great respect and helped to come back into the reality of life here. And because we all know that suicide is also a very big problem among, with PTSD among veterans. I'm sure that kind of thing, a Soldier's Ride, is sort of an uplifting kind of an experience that would show soldiers that they were appreciated, which is a very important thing.
well, not only that, but from what I understand, the camaraderie of being a soldier, the discipline, the whole structure of being in the military and being a soldier is something that when all of a sudden you can't do it anymore, you're forced out of it because of an injury, it's very hard to get used to. And what Soldier Ride does is it brings these guys back together, these guys and women back together, so that at least for a few days they get that feeling back, and they can talk to fellow soldiers about what they went through, what happened to them. Because they go back to their towns, maybe they're the only soldier in their town that served overseas and got injured, They maybe, have to, at least today, in today's age, you could pick up a phone, you could, get online, but there's nothing like spending a weekend with somebody who's been through what you've been through, to talk about your problems, talk about issues, and just get out there. And that's the other thing that Soldier Ride really does. Not only brings the soldiers into the communities and allows the communities to thank them and be with them, but it allows the soldiers to be with each other, which a lot of times, they miss tremendously, and they need just to get over some of the, injuries and trauma they've had. Yeah. Some of them will never get over the trauma that they went through, or it's something they have to live with, and things that we'll never understand. But the idea of having a group that they can go to, like the Wounded Warrior Project and like Soldier Ride, and at least they know that there's somebody there who cares. A lot of these men and women, they wake up in the hospital, and the first thing they see on their bedside is a backpack from the Wounded Warrior Project. And in the backpack are little comforts from home. You know, maybe a deck of cards, maybe an iPad, maybe a phone card because they don't have money to call home. Maybe a pair of boxer shorts or, you know, a t-shirt. People don't realize you get injured in the field and your uniform gets cut off you get put in a helicopter, you get dragged from one medical facility to the next. They get incredible, you know, state-of-the-art medical attention from some of the best doctors in the world, but they don't get a lot of the little comfort items that you and I think of as, you know, what we would want if we were in the hospital. Wouldn't you like to have a clean t-shirt? Wouldn't you like to have, you know, a clean pair of socks? Well, unfortunately, all their gear has been left somewhere in Iraq, you know, and it may take, you know, number one thing, get them to a place, get them, you know, stabilized, get them into whatever operating room they need to be in. All that other stuff is very secondary, you know.
So, so where does it start here, and when is it going to take place? Do you know?
Yeah, I just looked it up. The New York Soldier Ride starts July 15th. Now that's in New York City it starts, and it gradually makes its way out here. And if July 15th is Monday or Tuesday, I believe it's July 18th is Friday evening, and July 19th is Saturday. So the 18th and the 19th would be the days of the local Soldier Ride here in the Hamptons. Now we're actually going to be premiering the documentary that weekend here in Amagansett. So the local community will get a chance to see the documentary for the first time. It'll be its world premiere that weekend. And then it's going to go on tour with Soldier Ride around the country.
Okay, and we are actually going to, at the end, during part of this show, we are going to show some of what you have been taping and see a little bit more about what happens during the course of the Soldier Ride. And by the way, if people want to donate to the Soldier Ride, there is a way to do that?
There is a way to do it. You can go to soldierridemovie.com and just click on support the film. LTV is actually our fiscal sponsor, so that when you make a donation, you actually make it to LTV if you'd like a tax write-off. And we've worked out an arrangement with LTV to be our sponsor for the film.
Well, thank you very much for coming and teaching us all about this important event and how we can support the people who are doing all of this really dirty business for us, and how we can give them a pat on the back.
Great, Phyllis. Well, I appreciate you having me on, and hopefully we'll see you at the screening of the documentary when it comes out.
I certainly will be there. What do you think of that?
That'd be great. I'd love it.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Matt. It was a pleasure.
It was sort of like an urban legend, the riding across the country. Everyone knew someone who had done it, or someone's cousin who had done it, but no, I didn't know anyone directly. You know, we put a card table in front of the talk house, and we decided how much money it would cost to actually do the ride. And we said, if we get to that amount, then I'm going. And I remember that night we got to that amount. It was kind of a, you know, crazy moment, because then I really realized I was going, and it all became real.
I think we met Chris when they were pitching the idea of doing the Soldier Ride, being maybe in the group of people that thought that, yeah, it's a novel idea, but I don't think it's going to go very far. We
went down to Walter Reed, and that was really when it got scary, because once I walked into Walter Reed, it was such a serious place. The urgency to succeed became so much stronger, and the fear of failing was growing much stronger as well.
I remember Ryan calling and going, "You remember that guy, John Milia, from Wounded Warrior Project?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And Ryan says, "You know, he's got this guy riding a bike across the country or something." I just thought it was cool, and it turned out we got the opportunity to ride the last 10 miles in with Chris when he finished up in San Diego. And I just remember thinking to myself, you know what, if they do this again, I want to do the whole thing.
And literally no sooner than 10, 15 minutes after the end of the ride, they said they wanted to ride the whole thing.
Honestly, probably 7 months passed after that conversation where I completely forgot that I'd agreed to ride a bike across the country, and maybe secretly hoped everybody else did too.
So I finished in the fall, and then we left in the following spring from LA back to the East Coast. I mean, we get to ride our bikes, and people make a big deal out of it, but I mean, to be able to help these guys by riding your bike is a no-brainer.
It's kind of a big part of me and Heath coming out here is that we just really want to make sure that we can keep it in the public's eyes. It's a worthwhile cause to support organizations that take care of soldiers.
The ride as a whole was amazing, and it was a ton of work, and there was a lot of days where I didn't want to get out of bed, and there was a lot of days that I felt like I was too sore to get out of bed.
Well, what we're doing is we're riding across country to raise both funds and awareness for the Wounded Warrior Project, and basically these guys want to show what they can do, and what guys who are in the hospital right now with similar injuries, that they can still do anything they want.
One of the more profound parts of it was the reception that we had from the people along the way, and how the groundswell of support grew as we moved across the country, and the word got out what was going on, and the impact it was having on people's perception of wounded service members.
Heath watched him in his hand cycle there drag himself across the desert and over the Rockies through the Midwest. It's crazy.
And just to see what happened is just like, I mean, it's a testament to the guys up there at the Talk House and what incredible people they are, and it's just an honor to know them. Because, you know, the community, East Hampton, Amagansett stepped up, we were able to make it a reality and, you know, helped make it happen, and for that I'm forever grateful.
We are currently taking tax-deductible contributions to help us with our goal of finishing this documentary in 2014. Please visit soldierridemovie.com and click on Support the Film to make a tax-deductible donation. Thank you for your support.